Let's talk a bit about Booleans. Booleans are used where you need no gray area, either on or off, true or false, present or not present, so on, so forth. In PHP, Booleans can be represented in several ways. Let's take a look at a few of those Booleans now. Booleans are always using the keyword true or false. These will always equate to, in case of true, equates to a 1, and in the case of false, will equate to a 0. So anything that is a 0 value will be false. Anything greater than a 0 value of any kind, string or otherwise, will be equating to 1. So for instance, if we have a variable named bool, we can set that equal to false and follow that by a semicolon. And now bool, the variable bool, will be set to the Boolean false. If we want to change that to a true, we simply redefine bool, so $bool, and set that equal to the keyword true. Follow that with a semicolon. So now bool will be equal to true. Let's go a little bit further. Let's start with a variable, we'll call it foo. We'll set foo equal to the string, so double quotes, A, B, C, D, close our double quotes, and then add a semicolon at the end to complete our statement. So foo equal to A, B, C, D, if we test it as a Boolean, will return true because it's any value that is a non-zero. Now let's say we have another variable named bar, and we set that equal to 0. So now 0 will equate, if tested, to the Boolean false. The way we're going to do that is with a built-in function in PHP called isSet. We're not going to get too far into isSet, but this is how it is defined. Just the word isSet, all one word, no spaces, then an open parenthesis, and then the $sign and whatever variable we want to test. So in this case, let's test bar. Close that parent and a semicolon to complete our statement. And when we run this using if conditionals or whatnot, you will get the return value of false. Meet me in workspaces, and we'll look at more examples of Booleans. So far, when talking about variables, they are varying. It's something that we want to modify. So we might want to change name, we might want to change location, we might even want to change, well, just any variable. That's the idea behind a variable. It's a temporary storage location for information in your program. Well, let's say we needed something that was constant, something that was always the same value. Say, for instance, like the maximum number of badges that a student was allowed to have, or maybe the year that you were born, or things that are just unchangeable. Well, to use those in our code, we'll define something called a constant. So in order to define a constant, we're going to use a keyword or a function inside of PHP, an internal function called define, to define constants for us to use in our program. So let's go ahead and do that now, but we're going to do that at the top of the file, which is standard for where we would normally place our constants. So let's scroll down to the bottom first and clean up our information from the last one. So we'll go ahead and get rid of all of this, and then go back up to the top. Now let's create a couple of constants. We'll do that at the very top of our file. We'll do that by saying define, okay, and then open and close our parens, and then close that with a semicolon. And then we'll start off with saying a name inside of double quotes, and let's say year, and we'll say the current year, which is an integer, 2014. Okay, so that means we have a constant in our program called year. Now, constants also use the same naming formats and requirements as a variable, but for standards purposes, we like to always use all capital letters for our constants. That way, when we're looking through our code and we see us using a constant name, such as year, but it's all caps, we know it's a constant. It's just not a modifiable variable. Also, they don't begin with the $sign symbol. So let's define a couple more here. Let's define one called title. Okay, and this could be job title. So in order to do that, let's actually go ahead and put it in here. It'll be a string. We'll say teacher. All right, close it out. And then to make it job title, we would say job underscore title. So we couldn't do spaces, so this would be invalid. So we'll have to use an underscore.
Very standard. So hit save. Now, an example of something that would be invalid, let's say there's a comment, say invalid constant name. And we'll say define. We'll open and close it. And if it was a string, but yet we start it with an integer, that would not be correct. So we couldn't do, say, to legit, even if it was to quit. Okay, terrible joke. So this would be an invalid constant name. We'd actually get an error here, so I'm going to comment that out, but I'll leave it here so you know what an invalid constant name would look like. So here we have a couple of constants, maybe one more. We'll do another integer, so we'll actually copy and paste this, remove this, and we'll say that max badges. So MAX. Okay, and we'll just have like a hard stop limit of, say, 150,000. A lot of badges. Okay, now how do we print these or echo these on our screen? Let's scroll down and we'll go to our little play area here, and I'll just simply say echo and then a constant name. So we'll say year. Close it out, go to our preview and see what we get. 2014. So we can use it just like a variable. So if you look at our code, we're still saying echo year. And if we echoed another one, say job title, go back and refresh it. There. And now we know teacher. So the idea is we create constants to use in our code mostly for comparison, especially when we get into conditionals, which we'll do later. But we define them in all caps. We define them at the top of our code, and we follow the rules that we would follow for creating variable names, but just putting them in all caps.